Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in this info exchange today, March 28th. These sessions are co-hosted by Milltown Foundation and Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. It's something that we started a couple of years ago as a result or a product of the outdoor recreation planning that we did on behalf of the region. And we have found these sessions to be really valuable as a way to keep up to date with investments and developments that people are working on, finding ways for collaborations to be founded during our conversations and hearing what others are interested in and have an interest in partnerships around. So this is the first one we've done in 2023. We have a few people who've signed up to give presentations specifically, but we're also going to welcome comments and updates from anybody and everybody in the room as we go. The first presenter we have is Stephanie Bergman from Mass Audubon. She'll be sharing an update on the planned All Persons Trail expansion and some recent trail assessment and trail work planning. So we'll hand it over to Stephanie. And Stephanie, if you have anything that you want to share through the screen, you should be able to do that.
Great, thank you. I'll just say I woke up with a sore throat this morning, so my voice is a little shaky. Sorry, everybody, if it like cracks in the middle of this. I'm gonna pull up my presentation to share, just because it's great to see the pictures along with what we're doing. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay. So we're really excited that we're going to be expanding our All Persons Trail. The work is actually going to begin in May. Mass Audubon created an action agenda a few years, which is a 5-year strategic plan. And one of our priorities in that is to address access to nature, and this project fits right into that. So across the state, Mass Audubon currently has 12 All Persons Trail that are either in existence or in late stages of development. We're a leader in this area. We partner with many organizations to help them create accessible trails. And our current accessible trail is nearly 2 decades old, and it was one of Mass Audubon's first in the state. And it has really served the community. It has served the sanctuary. It's been a wonderful asset, and we're really excited to be able to expand upon it. And all of it came out of this really terrible situation that we had. Pleasant Valley and other parts of Lenox were hit by a microburst in July 2021. It caused significant damage to the sanctuary and catastrophic damage to our All Persons Boardwalk, which you can see in the first picture in the left corner. There were about 4 massive trees that fell on top of our boardwalk, completely destroying it. We also had some significant damage to our trails around the pond from erosion, from the heavy rains that came. Our All Persons Boardwalk was rebuilt just in time for summer camp last summer. And our All Persons Trail that leads down to the boardwalk was resurfaced this fall to improve the grade and just the stability of the trail. So we are going to be adding a huge expansion. So the red part is the current All Persons Trail, and the light blue part is the current boardwalk that leads down to Pikes Pond. There's a great sitting area there now. That place is really used for birding programs, for wildlife viewing, for our camps and school programs. And I think it's about 1/3 of a mile right now. And this expansion is going to bring it to about 1 mile. So perpendicular to our current boardwalk. We're going to add a new boardwalk that will skirt the edge of Pikes Pond and bring it across to where we have a trail called the Pikes Pond Loop Trail. That trail will be upgraded to all persons accessibility, and we're going to create a new loop. So right now, the yellow part of the on the map, the hand-drawn part, most of that exists, but the lollipop at the end is going to be added on, so the trail will naturally just kind of bring itself back upon itself, and there's not going to be a like dead end to the trail. It'll just allow you to come back to the beginning. We're going to be adding some more seating areas, and we're going to have some really great multi-sensory interpretation that will hopefully come later in the fall. We're really excited to have places for people to come and sit and relax in nature, have a trail that works for people of all ages and abilities, families, kids in strollers, you name it. Everyone will be able to use this trail. We're going to have great interpretive signage. We'll have an audio tour as well as tactile signs. And I have some images of what those will look like that will educate about the natural history and climate change. So the theme of it will be a changing landscape. Our Pikes Pond Trail is a really high use trail, and that will enhance the sustainability of it. It was really rutted out, and we want to make sure people are not going to get hurt on that trail, and that the actual trail itself remains sustainable. And then I think, as most people know, we put a big addition onto our barn a couple of years ago that added accessible restrooms and an outdoor accessible program space. So this is going to support all of our previous accessible work. We're going to have more opportunities for environmental education and climate change education. We've learned so much from the impact of this storm and how climate change is going to be affecting our sanctuary in the future. And we're planning for that. That's part of our trail assessment coming next. And we know that there's a huge demand for more accessible outdoor recreation in the Berkshires. So we're really excited about this opportunity for residents and visitors to be able to spend more time in nature, no matter what their ability is. We'll have some great new views from this trail. We'll have a great view across Pikes Pond, across Yoakin Ridge. We'll have the beaver wetland. We'll have a bench across from that beaver wetland where people can sit, and it looks really different right now. It's really wet in there. So it's one of those places that's constantly changing based on how much rain we've had or beaver activity. And then these are some examples of the tactile signs. These are ones that are at our other sanctuaries across the state. So ours have not been developed yet, but they're meant for people to be able to touch and experience, and there will be Braille, and as well as having an audio tour that is really in depth and will make you feel like you have a naturalist by your side through your hike. So that was the quick and dirty about our All Persons Trail expansion. We're almost done with our fundraising. The project budget was about $450. We've got about $120 left to raise. And we're breaking ground, I think, May 22nd. So before I jump into the trail assessment quickly, does anybody have any questions about our All Persons Trail expansion? And if so, I don't know if I can see hands, but I'll let Laura
Feel
help me with that.
free, yeah, feel free to unmute yourself if you do have a question for Stephanie. And if not, you can keep going.
Great. So as part of our recovery from the microburst, and actually from the previous summer where we just had torrential rains all summer and our trails were constantly flooded, it really put front and center the urgent and immediate need to address climate vulnerability at our sanctuary. And we're leading that off at Pleasant Valley, but this is also going to be happening at Mass Audubon sanctuaries across the state, because we're recognizing just how many of these intense storms are happening and how they're really impacting both the buildings and the trails at our sanctuary. So we did some building assessment, but that's less what you all are interested in. And we are in the midst of a really comprehensive trail assessment at the sanctuary with two main goals, to lessen impacts in sensitive habitats and to improve the visitor experience. Pleasant Valley was created in the early 1920s, and many of our trails are from that time period. And when they were created, there was less concern about impact on the habitat, and some of the habitats actually weren't even there. Some of our beaver wetlands didn't exist when the sanctuary was created, and the beavers coming in the early 1930s helped to develop these amazing wetlands that our trails are now a little too close to and ending up underwater. So we're working with Peter Jensen, who many of you may be familiar with. He's an incredible trail builder. He assessed all 7+ miles of trails at Pleasant Valley. He presented findings to our team, and our team includes our property staff, administrative staff, visitor services, and education staff. And together, each of those groups looked at our trails and the work that needs to happen from their own perspective. And we now have a 30-page document that outlines high, medium, and low priority projects for the sanctuary. We're going to start with some of the easy repair work and things that our staff and volunteers can complete on their own. And then we're waiting to get a work plan, costs, and a time log from Peter about beginning some of this high priority work, which we think will either start in the fall or next spring. It will fairly drastically change our trail system. We're going to lose some trails, we're going to add some trails, but the ultimate goal of it is to make these trails sustainable, because many of them are really not in great shape right now. So we do have a bunch of sections that we will be retiring and rewilding. Some of those are impassable because of trees that came down during the microburst. Some of them are in wetland areas and they need to be moved. We'll be replacing and improving infrastructure, making better boardwalks, higher bridges. Most importantly, we'll be moving trails away from sensitive areas, especially our wetlands. And then one thing that we're missing now is a great easy loop trail. When we had the microburst hit, the dam that impounds Pikes Pond had 2 huge trees on it that were uprooted, and we need to close the trail that goes across our dam, which took away that nice easy loop around Pikes Pond. So we're trying to figure out how we can get a new loop around Pikes Pond that doesn't go across our dam. And just a quick example of what one of our high priority projects. There's a boardwalk section. You can see it has the circle with the X through it. That is part of a loop that goes around our beaver ponds. But there are 2 trails that could allow us to get down to the Yoakin Trail, and that boardwalk area, it's about 510 feet. It's a nightmare. It's always flooded. Visitors always get their feet wet, or if it gets a little icy, it's dangerous. It's impacting the water flow in that area. And so that section is going to be removed, and we're going to allow the wetland to kind of reclaim that section. And in doing that, we're also looking at the Bluebird Trail and the Alexander Trail. There are sections of those 2 trails that are a little bit steep. So we're going to assess how we can get from the visitor center down to the Yoakin Trail, maybe moving Bluebird a little bit, or rerouting Alexander a little bit to be able to make it a better experience for people, and less steep, because steep trails are not very sustainable. And that's that. So we expect, overall the project will be about probably about a 5 to 7 year project to hit all of the high, medium, and low priority work. But in the end, we're going to have a new great trail system, and we're really excited for people to come and explore. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Before we move on, any questions about either portion of her presentation? It's great to see this kind of investment happening. This is definitely very reflective of the kinds of things that we learned during the planning process. So, we're seeing pockets of improvements along these lines in different parts of the county, but this really represents some very significant change in progress. So thank you to Mass Audubon. We're going to move next to Allison Dixon from the Housatonic Valley Association to share some information about an event they have planned coming up. Allison.
Hi, good to see everybody. I feel like I haven't seen many of you in person for a long time. And I am the Berkshire Watershed Conservation Manager, and Housatonic Valley Association, in case you aren't aware, is essentially the watershed organization for the Housatonic River. And this is our second annual. Last year, we dipped our toes into trying to create an event around the watershed. So this extends all the way down into Connecticut and into New York. And the goal is really just to get people out and about and appreciating what our watershed has to offer. And if you do register, there is no cost to register. And it's really an opportunity to get together with friends and hike, walk, paddle, bike, explore the watershed in many ways. I'm a swimmer, so I have thought about getting some of my swimmer friends together and swimming as many lakes that we can find in that time period. And you register, and through the registration process, there's a way that you can log in your miles of biking, hiking, paddling, and there are prizes. Some will be for the most miles walked, hiked, biked, whatever, and other prizes will be pop-up prizes. For example, if you go out, if you're a bird watcher and you do a bunch of bird watching and record that, you may get your name thrown into a hat with all other people that went out bird watching, and they'll pull a name and you might get a gift certificate for $50. There's a variety of prizes, and because our watershed is quite large, I mean, small comparatively to other watersheds, but we are 2,000 square miles. It is kind of a more of an online background, but you'll be able to share your information and probably see what everybody else is doing as well. And again, it's free. And you do register, and we're hoping that some of our partners will help spread the word. So that's really what brings me today. And there will be more information on our watershed because it does look like registration can start next week in April. And that's about it. As a watershed organization, I have done numerous paddle trips in the past, public paddle trips. I do not have any scheduled, but I did want to just bring up that one of our biggest challenges, Dennis Regan, who left in 2019, he did a lot of work on river access, but we are seeing that eroding. And there are accesses that I won't use anymore because they're just not very safe. So there's a lot of work to be done on river access. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Allison. Any questions for Allison about the event itself or about HVA? Looks like the link that you'd want to go to register starting in April will be hvatoday.org. Really appreciate that. Allison, we'd love to connect with you offline to learn more about the water access spots that are raising particular concerns. Okay, we are going to move on to our next guest speaker is Amanda Bowers from AST Scuba. She knows all the ins and outs of this and how it works here in the Berkshire. So I'll just hand it right over to Amanda. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Laura. We do have some photos that I'd like to share, since some of the, like, basically the best way to talk about scuba is to show pictures of it. Okay, so if anybody has been on North Street in the last however long, you'll have seen our storefront. We had this redone a few years ago. But the store has actually been here for 40 years. It's now owned second generation. The original owner's daughter now owns it. Lori, some of you might know her. And we do a variety of things, but most of what I'm going to be talking about today is the training that we do, because we do most of our training right in Lake Onoda. If you know the boat ramp at Burbank Park, next to is the fishing pier, and then next to the fishing pier is a nice little grassy area, which is where we run most of our open water training dives. And people will often ask me, like, well, what is there to see in Onoda? And the answer is kind of not a lot, but on the other hand, you know, the brand new divers that we put down in Onoda, they get to experience something that they never expected, and that is kind of friendly fish. So I have a little video here of a new diver from a couple of years ago getting to sort of come really just eye to eye with some of the fish that live right there in Lake Onoda. And so it's just this cool little interaction that people get kind of like right away when they train with us. And this happens right here in Pittsfield. We don't have a whole heck of a lot of other places that we put in, because we do, I'm not going to say have a problem with access, but we as a shop for training only access, only put in at public access spots. So that spot at Onoda in Pittsfield is one of pretty much our most trafficked. In fact, during the depths of the pandemic, when all of the access to Lake George was cut off, but you know, there was no restriction to access to Onoda. There were people coming down from New York to dive in Onoda from our little access spot. So it got to be pretty popular. In fact, also there's another dive shop from up in Albany that will run what they call Sunday Fun Days, and they'll take people out to different dive spots around the region, but at least one day a summer, they're coming down here to go and dive in Onoda. So we love running into them. And our one other spot, at least my other little hidden gem that I'll bring people to occasionally, is Yoakum Pond. I don't know if everybody is familiar with it, but it's a wonderful little spot, beautiful little pond. It's only about 12 feet deep at the deepest, but the plant life is so beautiful. It's actually one of our healthiest ponds, and you know that it's healthy because it has these little freshwater jellyfish, which is what's on the picture on the right-hand side. And they don't sting, but when they are out in full force, which is only for about 2 weeks a year in the fall, it is just beautiful and super cool to get to just swim through an entire smack of them. That's what a group of jellyfish is called, is a smack. That's pretty much the bulk of what we get to do here in the Berkshires. I'll talk a little bit more about the store though, because Stephanie reminded me, talking about the all access trails, about some accessibility work we are doing as well through the shop. Is we just got certified as a classified diving center. And what that means is that we have instructors here who have been trained on how to take into account people with different abilities and adapt the scuba training to those abilities to make sure that these people still have that access to enjoy this sport in a safe and appropriate way for them. So that is what we do here at the shop. In the Berkshires, I want to touch on a couple of other places that we go that aren't in the Berkshires, but they are here in the region. One being Dutch Springs down in Pennsylvania. They were sold a couple of years ago or last year, but they are reopening up, hopefully this year. And they're really great because they're a spot where there's been a bunch of like attractions. Like here we have a diver sitting in a Jeep that's been sunk. They have a trolley, they have like 3 planes, they have a crane, they have a ton of stuff to go play around in. Another spot like that we like to take divers to is up in Lake George off of Hearthstone Point, the campground. And then we'll also do a little bit of shore diving off of Cape Ann. We took some divers out to Long Island to do a boat dive to a wreck offshore there. But I know that this isn't specifically Berkshire, like stuff that you do in the Berkshires, but all of our trips start and end here. And we're taking our divers, mostly local divers that live here in the Berkshires with us. So, and then I always just like to show at least one beautiful picture. Again, speaking of trips that start and end here with us, we also take divers, mostly locals here from the Berkshires, to beautiful places. And, you know, but they're all trained here locally with us. And then we take them to places to see like giant parrotfish like you see here. So, so thank you guys. I'll tell you if anybody has any questions about what we're doing. Oh, actually, I forgot one thing. Sorry, I'm not terribly organized. Going back to Lake Onoto, one thing that we do, and we're going to do hopefully 4 Sundays this year, if the weather holds up, is we'll do lake cleanups right off of our little dive spot there. And we'll pull us anywhere between like, you know, we haven't been weighing recently, but we'll pull a decent amount out each time we do those. And, you know, it gives our divers a chance to get in the water without being like in a specific class, and we're happy to do it. So it's one of our favorite things to organize during the summer. So I'll take any questions if anyone has them.
I just wanted to say I have seen those jellyfish in Center Pond, but I haven't swum in Yoakum, and I don't think I feel like I've seen them in August. It's nice to know that maybe later in the year, because the last time I didn't see them. But I'd love you to celebrate the watershed by scuba diving.
Yes.
And I understand you also have another business of pulling the invasive milfoil.
Yes, that's our sister business. Our owner, Lori Rock, also owns that business. That's Aquatic Roots. So she hates it when I call her a mogul, but I'm going to say that she's a business mogul because she owns the 2 businesses. Yeah, so that one, they go around and they pull the invasive underwater vegetation, mainly Eurasian milfoil. Sometimes they'll focus on some other types of plants. So that's another way that, like, you know, associated with the shop, that we are trying to make sure that, you know, some of these watersheds are enjoyable for people, you know, maybe not getting underwater, but the swimmers as well, because we have a few areas. I know she has a few areas that they maintain specifically so that they're more pleasant for the swimmers to enjoy.
Great. Any other questions for Amanda? Anybody remember what a group of jellyfish is called? I think Diane answered, but she's muted.
Smack.
A smack.
Yep.
Very cool trivia. Thank you so much, Amanda, for your presentation and sharing something I think a little bit more unknown about outdoor rec in the Berkshires. Very cool. Next up, we have Jim McGrath from the city of Pittsfield, and Jim has a few slides to share with us and some information about a handful of projects. So I'll hand it over to Jim.
Great, thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. I'm Jim McGrath. I'm the City of Pittsfield's Park and Open Space Program Manager. And before I begin, I just want to say thank you to Amanda and the divers from Action Sports. They have been doing these underwater cleanups off of Burbank Park for a number of years, so we really appreciate the collaboration there. And I will also speak to the other sister company of Action Sports, which is the Aquatic Roots group that Lori runs, the underwater diving and milfoil pulling. We have been using Lori for a couple of years to do underwater milfoil pulling at Onoda Lake as part of our efforts to reduce overall reliance on chemicals to combat invasive weeds. So I recommend folks, if you have, if you're associated with any lakes or ponds that need underwater services like that, right here in Pittsfield, we've got a good group. So, okay, on your screen, what you are seeing is the next southerly extension of the Ashwiltacook Trail. As many of you know, the city completed the extension of the Ashwiltacook Trail from the Mall Road in Lanesboro down to Crane Avenue. And that was completed last year in the spring of 2022. And that was a 1.5 mile extension. And, you know, we had been planning in the city of Pittsfield for a number of years to get this bike trail into Pittsfield. It had been part of our master plan and our open space plan. And I think generally there's just a real need to continue to develop this Berkshire bike path. So we were able to do the first 1.5 miles, get that completed last spring. We immediately began the design planning and permitting for the next 1/2 mile extension. And admittedly, this is a small extension. So that's what you see on the screen now. It's a 1/2 mile extension from the parking lot on Crane Avenue, and it extends southerly down to Merrill Road, where there will be a smaller parking lot established with 11 spaces. So, you know, a little bit at a time. This is, you know, this 1.5 miles, it's not a lot, but again, it's a significant project for us because it means that we are extending this trail. We're continuing the extension of the trail southerly. And of course, the whole idea of this trail is that it's not a Pittsfield bike path. This is a Berkshire bike path. So I know there's a lot of efforts to connect this path into the town of Lenox and southerly into the other South Berkshire towns. And I know there's a lot of folks like Marge Cohen and the Berkshire Bike Path group that are working with the Mass DOT to realize these this sort of grand vision. So, so where we are at right now with this extension, it's fully 100% designed. All of the right-of-way acquisition work has been completed. We recently received the orders of condition for the wetland impacts along the trail. And tonight at the Pittsfield City Council, the city will sign the agreement with the Commonwealth to utilize, it's basically a lease agreement, which allows us to operate the trail in the right-of-way, which, so this former railroad right-of-way is owned by the Commonwealth. And they have paid for the construction of the bike path. But part of this agreement that I spoke to requires that the city of Pittsfield maintain the bike path. So we are happy to do that. We've ramped up our park crew over the past couple of years to be able to maintain these new sections of bike path, as well as a number of the other new park facilities that we're bringing online in Pittsfield. So we're really excited about this one. Construction will begin in late summer here at this extension, and it will be fully completed by the spring of 2024. So stay tuned for a ribbon cutting event. We're just really terribly excited to get this bike path extension constructed down to Merrill Road. And I know the state has plans on the books to further extend this bike path along Merrill Road to approximately Newell Street. And if you're familiar with that section of Pittsfield, it's about where the Bellinger Youth Athletic Facility sits. So that will be a parallel to the roadway path. There is sidewalk there now, and the plan is to modify the sidewalk so that it can accommodate to be the bike path. So it'll be much wider, and there'll be some separating infrastructure that separates and makes it a safe path along a busy Merrill Road. So, and from that point, southerly, it's really kind of unknown. I know that, like I mentioned, the state is thinking a lot about how to continue to get this bike path through Pittsfield and to a point of a connection in Lenox. But there's a little bit more work to do there, and we will share those design plans with the community as they become more known. So that's the bike path extension. If anyone's got any questions, you can throw those in the chat or raise your hand. I'd be happy to answer those. If not, we'll jump right into another kind of high-profile project in Pittsfield, which is the construction of pickleball courts. I'm sure you all have heard about pickleball. It's a fast-growing sport that's sweeping the nation, and it seems like every community out there is building pickleball courts. We have heard for a number of years from folks in our city that they desire to have dedicated pickleball courts. You know, when pickleball started becoming a thing, we modified a number of our tennis courts across the city. We added some new lines for pickleball, and that was sort of an easy and cheap way to accommodate the sport on an existing athletic surface. You know, what we're seeing is that there's a lot less folks playing tennis and a lot more people playing pickleball. But we thought it was important for the city to take a leadership role in the development of a dedicated facility here in the county. So using American Rescue Plan funds, we have selected a site within Springside Park off of Benedict Road in the sort of north central part of the city. This site is directly across from the Berkshire Hills Country Club, and the site is within Springside Park, and specifically in an area of the park we call the Doyle Softball Complex. So after a pretty extensive site survey where we looked at sites across the city and did the old pros and cons side-by-side comparison of these sites, the subcommittee landed on a recommendation of this site within Springside Park, which was endorsed by Mayor Tyre and ultimately endorsed by the Park Commission. So we utilized the landscape design services of Berkshire Design Group out of Northampton, and they developed an 8-court pickleball facility for us with associated parking and, you know, fully handicap accessible. So originally it was an 8-court site. Once we started putting the numbers to it, we realized that 8 courts was beyond our available budget. So we pulled back a little bit and we skinnied up the parking lot and are now showing a 6-court facility. So this is much more in line with our budget, which is approximately $500,000. Yes, things are not cheap these days. You would think, wait, it's just asphalt and parking, but it's what we're finding in the city, and this is true across the Northeast, is that the cost to construct anything these days has escalated beyond what would be a normal inflation. And there are still supply chain issues even now, even though we are, post-COVID era, emerging out of COVID quickly. So we hope to get this project bid out in the next couple weeks, and which means that a contractor will be selected this spring, and will be under construction of this pickleball facility in late summer. I would anticipate that it probably won't be ready to play on until the spring of 2024. Just because I'm sure there will be some delays with material acquisition. God forbid our bids come in higher than we have funds for. That means we got to go back to City Council or to the ARPA committee seeking more funds. But either way, we're going to get this constructed, and we're going to meet that really huge demand in our city for pickleball. So looking forward very much to this project getting underway. And those are the design plans that Laura had up there. If anyone has any questions about pickleball, feel free to find me, or you can we raise your hand. We can answer those now or at the end of the presentation. The last project I wanted to speak to is one that has been in the news for some time. If you are a fan of baseball, and a fan of baseball in the Berkshires, you have heard about Wahconah Park. Hopefully many of you have visited the park and taken in a baseball game in the past. Well, about this time, exactly a year ago, we do our annual inspections at Wahconah Park once the snow melts and we can get in there and start getting things ready for the spring season. We were looking very closely at some of the superstructure components of the grandstand on Wahconah Street, and we were very alarmed by the accelerated rate of deterioration of some of the steel structure. So the decision was made after a consult with an architect to close the grandstand to occupancy for the 2022 baseball season. And I can tell you that really did not go over well with some in our community. And but what we were able to do was to, in the absence of having 1,400 to 1,750 seats in the grandstand, we brought in a whole set of temporary bleachers and erected those in a number of locations, actually on the field. And it actually turned out to be a pretty cool setup. The current team that plays at Wahconah Park is the Pittsfield Suns, and they are managed by the baseball family called the Gold Clan Group. They are part owners of the New York Yankees, so those folks really know baseball. And they helped us sort of get through this and really understand that putting these temporary bleachers wasn't the end of the world. Really it's all about the fan experience and the baseball play on the field. And there was no other facility in 2022 that allowed fans to get as close to the game as was happening at Wahconah Park. In parallel to what we were doing to make certain we could play baseball at Wahconah Park in 2022, as we were planning for the 2023 season and beyond. So we recognized that this grandstand, which was built in 1950, we recognize that there's a whole bunch of deferred maintenance. There's a lot of code compliance issues in the grandstand that are, it's not very handicap accessible, which means there's a real inequity in who can access the grandstand or portions of the grandstand and take in a game. We recently hired an owner's project manager to come in and assist us with this very large project to reimagine the Wahconah Park grandstand. It's my instinct that we will end up, because of the real deteriorated nature of this grandstand, we're going to end up removing the grandstand and constructing a new one in its place. So there is a committee that the mayor put together that is leading the effort here. It's made up of a number of folks who are involved with baseball, involved with environmental considerations or just general, city stakeholders who have a love and advocacy, want to see an advocacy role for Wahconah Park. So we will be hiring an architect, and there will be a lot of public meetings around Wahconah Park and reimagining not only the grandstand, but the campus in general. How you approach, what the parking looks like, how you approach the grandstand, what that concourse looks like. Certainly one of the things we know we need to do is we need to address some of the flooding concerns. Of course, Wahconah Park sits right on the banks of the west branch of the Housatonic River. And not only is there over bank flow that floods the parking lot, we also have a stormwater issue with stormwater coming off from the neighborhoods, the Lenox Ave neighborhood and in the neighborhoods to the east of Wahconah Park. It all converges in the parking lot and creates a really wet situation. So part of our project not only is going to look at the grandstand and what to do there, but also how we can address flooding within the parking lot and accommodate the parking. We also have another consideration in that Berkshire Medical Center lands their LifeStar helicopter at the park. So this is our opportunity to also look at a very formal and appropriate and safe helicopter landing pad. There are a lot more life flights happening these days out of Wahconah Park, as I understand, because there is a shortage of ambulance drivers. So there's a lot more people leaving Wahconah Park via helicopter. So we really need to accommodate the helicopter in a safe way. But really importantly, this is our opportunity to reimagine how Wahconah Park, will operate in our city for the next generation. Wahconah Park is critical not only to the city and the neighborhood, but it is very much a regional facility that welcomes folks from all over the Berkshires and Western Massachusetts and Eastern New York. But at the end of the day, we will always have baseball at Wahconah Park. We will accommodate the fans in a really genuine way. And I certainly hope if you have an interest in Wahconah Park and you see that there's an upcoming meeting to share ideas or your vision for what this park might look like in the future, please do come out to those meetings. We will start advertising those in the next several weeks. Wahconah Park really is an important part of our history here in Pittsfield, and we're just really looking forward to everyone having a voice. So a number of good projects happening in Pittsfield. These are sort of the high profile ones that I spoke to: the bike path, the pickleball courts in Wahconah Park. But there's a lot happening in a really positive way, not only here in Pittsfield out of City Hall, but of course, a lot of these other organizations that are on the call today, and a lot of you who aren't presenting but are part of our outdoor recreation landscape. So thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time and attention here.
Great, thank you, Jim. Any questions on the Pittsfield presentation? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Jim, I was just curious about the bridge on the extension of the rail trail. I saw some fine print there. Can you describe it more? I mean, it definitely needs a bridge or something there. It's a pedestrian bridge.
On the rail trail. Can we go back to that?
Yeah.
Can we go back to that
The
plan?
extension.
Yeah, I
Laura?
noticed the same thing. There's something about screening. Proposed
Yeah.
protective bridge screening.
Yeah, okay, so what that is, the bike path goes underneath Dalton Avenue. So the road will pass over the rail trail. On the underside of the roadway, there is a lot of flaking of paint and other, and often, as trucks and cars rumble over that bridge deck, things have a tendency to fall, whether it's road sand or pieces of the roadway. It happens. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to make certain that things aren't going to be falling on people's heads. So there is some screening that will go underside of the overpass, just to protect those that are on the pathway. So that's really what that is.
So does that overpass already exist? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's Dalton Avenue. Yep. Dalton Avenue passes over the right-of-way corridor. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep. That's Dalton Avenue. So if you're heading east on Dalton Ave and you pass pass, I'll use a landmark, Berkshire Roots on the north side of Dalton Avenue, and you head over the overpass, you come down, and on your left or on the north side would be Aldi's and Tractor Supply. That's that overpass. It's very narrow. It's part of the roadway, really narrows right there as it crests over that bridge. But yep, that's there, and we're going to be putting the pathway right underneath it on the old railroad corridor.
Thank you for that clarification. I was
Sure.
curious about that too. So, all right, we're going to move on to just one more quick presentation, and that is from us, your hosts for today, Berkshire Regional Planning Commission and Milltown Foundation. We are partnering again to present Mountain Day on July 22nd. We kicked this annual tradition off last year at Bosque Mountain, and we're going to be there again on July 22nd to present nearly a full day of activities. We'll have an outdoor recreation conference, free and open to the public, from 1 to 3 p.m. We'll be upstairs next to Lift in the Bosque Lodge. We are seeking presenters and topics to cover during the conference portion of the day. So if anybody is interested in being part of that conference, please let us know. Reach out soon, because we're looking to get all of that squared away quickly. After the conference closes, there will be a vendor village, which will house retailers, outdoor guides, clubs and organizations, nonprofit entities, as well as food and beverage. And happening concurrently will be a number of guided activities. We could be looking at a schedule that includes guided hikes, yoga classes, demos of equipment, all kinds of more hands-on and experiential opportunities. There'll be kids activities. And then throughout the day, we will also have some live music, culminating with a live stage performance. So we're really looking forward to this. We're interested in signing up both conference presenters and vendors for the vendor village. I will be sure to drop in a link to the vendor registration form. There is no fee to be a vendor. We are just asking that you provide your own table, chairs, and 10 by 10 pop-up tent to table under. And I want to offer Andy Werba from Milltown Foundation the opportunity to add anything that I've missed, or just to reinforce our excitement about Mountain Day 2023, excuse me.
That's right. Hi, everyone. Andy Werba from Milltown Foundation. As always, I think, Laura, you covered all of it. And I'd just like to highlight that this is a really special day. Last year was super fun. A very informative and robust conference in the morning, followed by just a really fun outdoor day for everybody. It's a family-friendly thing. So looking forward to this year.
Great.
Laura, if I could just mention one thing. At the end of today, there will we'll be sending out a link to everyone with a where you can actually register, not for the conference, but for the actual music if you want to attend the musical performance. So that'll be going out later today, that registration.
Yes, pre-sales for the ticketed portion of Mountain Day will start later today, and we'll offer a discounted rate for a stretch of time before the full price tickets go on sale in a month or so. And I think that's it. You should all have our contact information, but we'll also drop our email addresses into the chat. I did just put a vendor registration link in the chat. And we want to turn to opening up the floor to any attendees who would like to share an update. Just please raise your hand and we'll give you a chance to share whatever's new. Mindy, you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everybody. Berkshire Camino is a guided hiking experience in the Berkshires. We have hikes all throughout the county. We primarily are serving an audience of visitors. I'd say 90 to 95% of the people that come on these walks and hikes are visiting the area, and we want to be there for them in particular because they don't know the trails. And so we make it easy, safe, and engaging for them. But I've noticed that there's this opportunity to engage more Berkshire County residents. And so something that we are in the works with, I don't have the exact name, but let's, for argument's sake right now, call it the Berkshire Camino Challenge, a little bit like what HVA is doing this year. It'll be on all 13 of the Berkshire Camino hiking and walking routes that we offer on our public calendar. If someone were to buy all of that, it would be $944 to do the whole thing. And we're going to offer it at a dramatically discounted rate, probably 40% or so off. And then people who purchase that would, on their own, use their code to schedule in their registration on the walks that we already have happening. Those who finish will get a certificate of completion and some kind of goodies at the end. So it's sort of part of that spirit of being inspired by the Camino de Santiago and having this challenge to complete and having some recognition for that at the end. So I'm really hoping that that's going to be something that engages local residents, and we'll be promoting that certainly at Mountain Day, probably at some farmers markets and some other ways throughout the season. Thanks.
Thanks, Mindy. I see a hand up from Doug.
Hi, thanks. So over here at BNRC, we're pretty invested in planning this season. A lot of it is around expanding our high road routes, including expanding the one from Bosque into Pittsfield, and identifying new routes both in North and South County, focused around Adams and Great Barrington. In Great Barrington, we are continuing work on the Thomas and Palmer Reserve, where we opened up a new mile-long trail to the top of the hill there called Whale Rock, and expanding that around the property. We're also beginning work to open up trails on our Tomball Reserve, hopefully having the first trail segments and access open to the public sometime in 2024. And largely, we're just putting the required maintenance investments in our existing accessible trails and identifying new opportunities. So that's that.
Great, thank you, Doug. Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy Matthey, and I just want to introduce our organization. We're Western Mass Backcountry Alliance, and we're planning to participate in the Mountain Day at Bosque in this July. I just wanted to let everybody know what we're about. Our mission is to promote backcountry skiing in Western Mass and the Berkshires, and we're a member chapter of the Catamount Trail Association that's based in Vermont. We're a pretty new organization. We're just really excited to be participating with Milltown and Bosque and Berkshire Regional. So I just wanted to introduce us, and we'll see everybody this summer in July.
Great. It's great to meet you, Andy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting us. This is great.
Yeah. And Diane.
Hi, and just for brevity, echoing everything Andy just said, and just placing the Appalachian Mountain Club Western Massachusetts chapter. I'm the relatively new chair of it, and the AMC is there for the protection, enjoyment, and understanding of the outdoors. And we're the Western Mass chapter. And I had a question about what are new initiatives and investments do you mean for the conference? But I just got a great example of it. So I'm going to find out if we can. So we'll be a vendor. We'll definitely be listening to the music and floating around and seeing what's going on. And we'll look into leading hikes, doing demos, and how we might be able to contribute to the conference. So thank you, everyone. See you there.
Fantastic. Diane, thank you so much. We're looking forward to working with you on that. Anybody else want to introduce themselves or share anything you're up to related to outdoor rec? Randy, you want to go?
Sure. Lest anyone just think I'm lurking here. We got an email on the Berkshire Community Rowing mailbox about this particular Zoom call, which we had no idea what it was about. And so I just thought I'd get on, see what it's all about. So I don't really have a lot to say. I have more to absorb. And I guess I should just say that Berkshire Community Rowing has been in existence for 25 plus years now, and we've got a lot of plans, which some people in this crew, this gathering are aware of, and most people are not. We're keeping it a little bit on the down low. We want to keep things in the slow boil until we feel like we can really manage it. But a lot of things happening. So maybe I'll share next time. And maybe we'll go to the July thing, depending on who's around and who can do it and all of that. Summer's a busy time for us, obviously, all of us. So that's, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Randy. Definitely encourage you to consider being a vendor at the Mountain Day. It's a great opportunity to just raise awareness of your organization, and then invite those people to learn more about specific plans, when the time is right. So encourage you to do that, or just attend the conference as an audience member. Either way is great for us. So anybody else? David.
Hi, I'm Dave O'Neill. I'm the vice chair of the WMBA. I just want to say thanks for including us. Really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to Mountain Day this summer. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, David. Okay, well, we've gone a little bit over. I appreciate everybody sticking around here to a little bit past 1 o'clock. Thank you for allowing me to record this so that we can share with our colleagues. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody at Mountain Day and in future sessions like this one. All right.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.